In this video, I'm making a decorative mini quilt to use as a wall hanging. These are the beautiful fabrics I'll be working with. I start by cutting out 4x4-inch squares in each of the colors. I cut a linen square to pair with each colored square I've made. I then take my colored squares and draw a diagonal line from one corner to the other on each of them. I place a colored square on top of a linen one and sew with a 1/4 inch seam allowance on each side of the line. I repeat this for all of the pieces, chain stitching to save thread. I ended up making more squares than I actually needed for this project, but I'm excited to use up the remaining ones for a future project. Maybe a small pouch or a bag. I'll be sharing whatever I end up making in a future video. Next, I cut the squares in half along the drawn line. I then fold them out and iron them. I arrange the pieces the way I want the quilt to look. I then sew them together in groups of 4. Next, I sew these larger pieces together. I find that sewing a quilt in stages like this helps to make sure the corners line up better than if I had just sewn the pieces together in a line. I now have 6 pieces, which I combine into 2 larger pieces. Now, all that's left to do is sew these 2 pieces together. I take extra care to make sure the seams line up at the corner of each square. And my quilt top is finished. I already love the way it's looking. I lay the quilt on top of some cotton batting and cut around the edges, leaving about 1 centimeter of extra batting. I then lay this on top of the backing fabric and cut it out. For the quilting, I debated using hand stitching, but ended up deciding to use my machine because it's a lot faster and I didn't feel like I needed another hand stitching project at the moment. I quilted straight lines about 1/4 inch away from the seams where the pieces join. I then quilted diagonal lines from corner to corner. It was so nice to see the quilting come together really quickly, and I'm glad that I chose to use the machine for this one. Once the quilting was done, I cut away the excess batting and backing fabric so that I was left with a quilt that looked like this. I attach binding that is made up of linen fabric cut 2 1/4 inches wide and folded over on itself. I use a 1/4 inch seam allowance, so the visible part of the binding will end up being roughly a 1/4 inch wide. In case you're interested, there's a link in the description to a tutorial on how to do this binding method. Once the binding is attached on one side, I fold it out and iron it away from the quilt. I then hand stitch the binding to the back of the quilt using a ladder stitch and catching only the backing fabric. And here is the finished quilt. I am so happy with the way that this quilt turned out. I love how all the different colors work together, and the linen is a nice neutral shade that helps to tie everything together. I also love how the linen adds the element of a different texture. For the back, I used just plain cotton white fabric, just the same fabric that I used for all of these colored parts on the front. And when I was making it, I was a bit worried that this would be too boring on the back, but I actually really like how it turned out. The plain color makes all of the quilted lines really stand out, so I was surprised by how much I like the back, but I probably won't be seeing very much of it because I'm planning on hanging this on the wall. I just have to figure out where. And the way that I hang up my quilts, in case you are wondering, because I haven't included any loops to feed a dowel through, I actually just hang up my quilt using metal push pins that I pin into each of the 4 corners of the quilt, and I basically tack them to the wall. And I found that this method works really well. I haven't tried it for any really large quilts, but for a kind of crib-sized quilt or a smaller decorative quilt, it works great to attach the quilt to the wall without having to use too much hardware or extra steps for installation. Thanks so much for watching. I hope that you enjoyed seeing this quilt come together. If you want to see more sewing videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to this channel and give this video a like. Let me know in the comments if you've made a decorative quilt before or if you're planning on making one. I'd love to hear all about it. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!